5 years ago, Ethan Carter, the cold and calculating millionaire CEO, believed he had everything figured out: wealth, power, and control over every deal in the city. But when love knocked on his door, he pushed it away, telling himself he wasn't ready for complications. He walked away from Amelia, leaving her shattered and alone. He thought the past was buried, forgotten. Until fate struck back. On an ordinary afternoon, Ethan attended a charity event, unaware that his entire world was about to change. Across the crowded hall, he spotted a little girl clinging tightly to Amelia's hand. The child's big, curious eyes met his, and Ethan froze. Those eyes' stared right back at him. In that instant, the ruthless CEO who thought he could escape his past came face to face with the daughter he never knew existed. Ethan Carter had built his empire on discipline, detachment, and an unyielding hunger for success. The city knew him as the man who turned failing companies into gold, the one who never let his emotions cloud his judgment. But those closest to him, what few there were, knew that Ethan's greatest strength was also his greatest flaw. He never looked back. 5 years earlier, Amelia had been the only one who slipped past his walls. She was not from his world of endless boardrooms and glass towers. She was an artist, a woman with paint on her hands and fire in her heart. She laughed easily, dreamed freely, and for the first time in his life, Ethan had let himself feel. But when Amelia told him she was pregnant, his world cracked. Ethan had stared at her in disbelief, his chest tight with panic. "I can't," he had whispered, more to himself than to her. "I'm not ready for this. I can't be a father." Her eyes had filled with tears, but she didn't beg. She simply whispered, "Then I'll do this alone." And she did. Ethan buried himself in work, convincing himself he'd done the right thing. Family wasn't in his plans. He had convinced himself that love was weakness, that ties like that would only slow him down. For years, he pretended Amelia never existed, that the child she carried had vanished with her into the past, but the past has a way of waiting. 5 years later, Ethan was a guest speaker at a high-profile charity gala for children's hospitals. He was used to the attention, polite applause, cameras flashing, investors shaking his hand. Everything was familiar, controlled, until he stepped off the stage and saw her, Amelia. She stood at the far end of the hall, wearing a simple dress that did nothing to hide her elegance. Time had not dulled her. If anything, it had made her stronger, more radiant. But it wasn't Amelia who made Ethan's heart stop. It was the little girl clutching her hand. The child had dark curls, tumbling around her face, and wide hazel eyes that mirrored his own. She couldn't have been more than 4 or 5. She looked up at Amelia, then curious turned her gaze toward Ethan. The air left his lungs. Those eyes, his eyes. The ruthless CEO who prided himself on controlling every outcome suddenly felt the ground shift beneath him. His polished smile faltered, his practiced confidence vanished. He had faced hostile takeovers, courtroom battles, scandals, but nothing had prepared him for the soft, questioning gaze of a little girl who looked just like him. "Amelia," Ethan whispered as he stepped closer. His voice cracked, betraying him in a way it hadn't in years. She turned, her expression hardening the moment their eyes met. She shielded the girl slightly behind her, as if instinctively protecting her. "You shouldn't be here," she said coldly. Ethan's throat tightened. She's mine, isn't she?" Amelia didn't answer. The little girl tugged her hand, whispering something neither of them caught. Amelia simply smoothed her daughter's hair and guided her toward the exit. But Ethan couldn't move. He stood frozen, his chest aching with 1,000 questions, his carefully built walls crumbling around him. For the first time in his life, Ethan Carter realized there was something he couldn't walk away from. Ethan couldn't shake the image of the little girl's face. That night, while the city's skyline glittered outside his penthouse window, he sat in silence, papers scattered across his desk, phone buzzing with unanswered calls. For once, deals and deadlines meant nothing. He had seen himself in her. The shape of her eyes, the tilt of her smile, it was undeniable. But Amelia's cold stare haunted him even more. She hadn't needed to say the words. Her silence had screamed the truth. The next morning, Ethan did something he hadn't done in years. He left the office without explanation. His driver raised an eyebrow when Ethan gave Amelia's last known address, but said nothing. When she opened the door, Amelia's eyes widened. Then, they hardened. "You shouldn't be here," she repeated. "I need to talk to you," Ethan said, his voice low. "About her." A soft giggle floated from inside. A moment later, the little girl peeked out from behind Amelia's legs, clutching a stuffed rabbit. She looked at Ethan curiously, head tilted, as though she already knew him. "Amelia." His voice cracked. "What's her name?" Amelia hesitated, then said softly, "Leela." Leela. The name hit him like a thunderclap. Beautiful, delicate, chosen without him. She's mine, Ethan whispered, more to himself than anyone. I see it. Amelia's expression turned to steel. You don't get to show up after 5 years and claim her. You walked away, Ethan. Do you remember that? I remember every second, he admitted, guilt twisting in his chest. And I regret it every day. Her laugh was bitter. No. You regret being confronted with the truth. Don't pretend you've been suffering in silence while building your empire. You left me to carry everything alone. Leela tugged Amelia's sleeve. Mommy, who is he? She asked, her voice small but curious. Amelia froze. Ethan's heart slammed in his chest. He wanted to speak, but he couldn't, not without Amelia's permission. Amelia knelt down, smoothing Leela's curls. He's someone Mommy used to know. But Leela wasn't satisfied. She studied Ethan with a seriousness far beyond her years. Why do his eyes look like mine? The room went silent. Amelia swallowed hard, blinking back tears. Ethan stepped forward, voice trembling. Because I think I'm your father. Leela's little mouth opened in surprise. She glanced between them, confusion clouding her face. Then she clutched her rabbit tighter, pressing into her mother's side. Amelia's anger flared. You don't get to drop that on her like it's nothing, she snapped. You don't get to appear in her life when it's convenient for you. She doesn't need you, Ethan. She never did. Ethan's chest ached. Maybe not, but I need her. Amelia's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away, standing tall. You don't know what it's like waking up in the middle of the night to her cries, wondering how to pay bills, explaining why her daddy isn't there. You forfeited your right the moment you chose your company over us. Ethan's voice softened. I was scared, Amelia. I thought I couldn't be a father, but seeing her, I know now that she's the only thing that matters. Please, let me try. Leela looked up again, eyes wide. Mommy, is it true? Is he really my daddy? Amelia's lips trembled. She knelt again, hugging her daughter tightly. Yes, baby, he's your father, but that doesn't mean he gets to hurt us again. Ethan dropped to his knees. No longer the powerful CEO, but a man stripped bare. He met Lila's gaze and whispered, I will never hurt you, I promise. For the first time, Lila smiled hesitant, shy. She reached out her tiny hand and touched his. The world stopped. Amelia's heart ached as she watched. The man she had once loved was now on his knees before their daughter, his empire meaningless in the face of one child's touch. But forgiveness would not come easily, and Ethan knew he would have to fight harder than ever before, not for money, not for power, but for a place in his daughter's heart. Ethan had thought billion-dollar contracts were hard to win, but nothing compared to the silence that followed Lila's question. She had touched his hand so small, so trusting, and for a moment, hope had bloomed in his chest. But Amelia's face told him this wouldn't be simple. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He kept replaying Leela's smile, her soft daddy, the way her eyes reflected his. For the first time in years, he wasn't haunted by boardroom battles or stock market crashes. He was haunted by the image of a little girl who had grown up without him. The next week, Ethan returned not with lawyers or bodyguards, but with crayons, storybooks, and nerves he hadn't felt since he was a boy. Amelia frowned when she opened the door, but Lila squealed, Daddy, before she could say anything. The sound nearly broke him. Amelia crossed her arms. You think you can walk in with toys and erase 5 years? No, Ethan said quietly. I think I can start with 5 minutes. If she let me. Lila tugged her mother's hand. Please, Mommy, just 5 minutes. Amelia sighed, torn between her daughter's eager eyes and her own bruised heart. Finally, she nodded. 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes turned into an hour. Ethan read stories, made silly voices, and even let Leela paint his suit jacket with washable markers. Amelia watched from the kitchen, arms folded, fighting the smile tugging at her lips. Ethan looked ridiculous. But he also looked happier than she had seen him in years. Over the following weeks, Ethan showed up again and again. He never brought expensive gifts. Instead, he brought time. He helped Lila with school projects, taught her how to ride her bike, and learned how she liked her hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. But Amelia remained cautious. One night, after Leela had gone to bed, she finally spoke. Why now, Ethan? Why fight for her now? Ethan's voice was raw. Because I've been empty for 5 years and didn't know why. Because I see her and I see the best part of me. And because I can't let her grow up thinking her father didn't want her. That was my biggest mistake, Amelia. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving it. Tears stung her eyes, but she shook her head. You broke me once. I can't let you break her. He stepped closer, his eyes pleading. Then let me rebuild, piece by piece, not as the CEO, not as the man who walked away, but as her father. For the first time, Amelia's walls cracked. She saw not the ruthless CEO, but a man stripped of pride, kneeling at the mercy of the two people who mattered most. The real test came weeks later when Lila's school hosted a family day. Each child was asked to bring their parents. Lila looked up at Amelia with hopeful eyes. "Can Daddy come to?" Amelia hesitated. This was what she had feared, Lila's growing attachment. But when she looked at her daughter's smile, she couldn't say no. The day of the event, Ethan arrived early, wearing casual clothes instead of a suit. Lila ran to him, shouting, "Daddy!" In front of everyone, Ethan lifted her into the air, laughing freely, as if nothing else in the world existed. Throughout the day, he stayed by her side, helping her with crafts, cheering during games, and beaming with pride when she showed off her drawings. Other parents whispered, surprised to see the infamous CEO covered in glitter glue and stickers, but Ethan didn't care. For the first time, he was exactly where he belonged. Amelia watched, her heart softening despite herself. She saw the way Ethan's eyes lit up whenever Lila laughed, the way he bent down to her level, patient and gentle. This wasn't the same man who had once chosen power over love. This was a man transformed by fatherhood. That evening, after tucking Lila into bed, Amelia found Ethan standing by the door, ready to leave. He looked at her, his voice quiet. "Thank you for letting me be part of today." She swallowed hard. "You were good with her. I don't deserve her," he admitted, "but I'll spend every day proving I do." For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then, softly, Amelia whispered, "Don't prove it to me, Ethan. Prove it to her." Ethan nodded, his chest heavy but full for the first time in years. He wasn't walking away this time, not from his daughter, not from Amelia, because for the first time, the ruthless millionaire CEO had discovered something more powerful than wealth, more enduring than ambition. He had found his family. Sometimes life gives second chances, but only if you're brave enough to take them. Ethan walked away once, believing power and success were enough to fill the emptiness inside him. But standing before his daughter, the little girl who carried his smile, he realized the greatest empire he could ever build was not made of glass towers or billion-dollar deals. It was made of love, forgiveness, and family. Will Amelia truly allow him back into their lives? Or will the past wounds be too deep to heal? Can Ethan prove he is no longer the man who abandoned them, but the father and partner they both deserve? This is not just a story of regret, it's a journey of redemption. A reminder that even the coldest hearts can change when faced with the purest form of love. Don't miss what happens next, because this story is only beginning.